Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're heading to Costa Rica, a really fascinating place.
Absolutely.
Now, you think, okay, small country, just over 5 million people, maybe kind of uniform looking,
They might think that, yeah.
but nope. Spend a day there, San Jose, anywhere really, coasts, mountains, and the range of appearances is just wow.
It really is striking. You see everything.
Exactly. Fair skin, light eyes,
Yeah.
right next to folks with clear Afro-Caribbean features, darker skin, different hair textures, and then the indigenous communities, with those ancient Central American looks.
Those deep ancestral roots are visible.
So it got me thinking, how does this happen? Such a compact nation, but this incredible spectrum of looks.
It's a great question.
So today, that's our mission. We're going to use these sources we've gathered and really peel back the history. Look at the migration, the mixing, what shaped the Tico identity.
Right.
We want to get beyond just what people look like and dig into the why, the story behind it all.
And it is a story. It's like this living tapestry, woven over centuries. It didn't just happen overnight.
Yeah, you mentioned it became a mosaic pretty quickly, which is interesting in itself. Not just 2 or 3 groups mixing, but lots over a long time.
Precisely. A continuous process, really.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. Before modern Costa Rica, the very first people there.
Right. The foundation. We're talking about the original indigenous inhabitants. Groups like the Corotega, the Bribri, Cabekar, Baruca.
And they had distinct features.
Oh, definitely. Features typical of Chun Mesoamerican populations. Think almond-shaped eyes, darker skin, more of a bronze tone, and usually straight black hair. This reflects thousands of years of history right there in Central America.
Got it. Then fast forward to the 1500s, the Spanish arrive, and things start to change. But maybe differently than in other parts of the Americas.
That's a really key point, actually. The Spanish brought European genes, obviously. But unlike, say, Mexico or Peru, with huge indigenous empires, Costa Rica had a smaller native population to begin with. Partly disease, displacement, the usual tragic story.
Okay.
So the Spanish settlers who came, many intending to stay, often intermarried with the local indigenous women. There just weren't as many Spaniards initially and fewer indigenous people overall compared to elsewhere.
Ah, so that mixing started happening quite early and quite significantly.
Exactly. It was fundamental. It led pretty directly to a large mestizo population. That blend of European and indigenous heritage became the majority fairly early on.
So indigenous roots, then Spanish influence, creating this mestizo core.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole picture, is it? There's an African element too.
A crucial one, yes. Early on, some African slaves were brought over, but maybe fewer than in, like, the big Caribbean sugar islands.
Right.
But then the really significant wave in terms of population impact came later in the 19th century.
For the railroads and plantations.
You got it. Huge migration of Afro-Caribbean workers, mainly from Jamaica, also other islands. They were brought in to build the railways, work the banana plantations.
And they formed a major community.
Absolutely. Their descendants are a vital part of Costa Rica today, especially you see it in Limon province on the Caribbean coast. Very distinct culture, very visible heritage.
And it didn't even stop there. More people came later.
Right. The mixing continued. Late 19th, 20th centuries, you get new waves, Lebanese merchants, Chinese laborers, Italian farmers, others too. Each group added another thread to the tapestry.
Wow, so it's not just a simple two-way mix. It's layer upon layer.
Exactly. It's this ongoing story of different peoples arriving, settling, mixing, creating something uniquely Costa Rican over centuries.
Okay, so with all that history packed in,
Yeah.
how does it actually, look today? How does this mixing show up in people's features? Skin, eyes, hair?
Well, skin tone is a perfect example. You can practically map the history onto it. In the Central Valley, where most people live, skin tones often range from, say, light olive to tan. That directly reflects the dominant European indigenous mix we talked about. The stats back it up. Something like 83% identify as white or mestizo.
Okay, so that's the general vibe in the heartland. But the Caribbean coast, you said, is different.
Totally different story visually. Over in Limon, you see much darker skin tones much more commonly. That's the legacy of the West African ancestry from those 19th century migrations. About 8% of Costa Ricans identify as Afro-Costa Rican.
And the indigenous communities?
In their communities, especially the more isolated ones like in Talamanca, you'll find those beautiful bronze or coppery tones maintained, alongside those distinct facial features. It's quite striking.
But you mentioned this isn't always simple, this diversity. There are social issues tied to it, like colorism.
Yeah, that's definitely a reality. It raises that tough question.
Hmm.
How does a country balance pride in multiculturalism with, well, the lived reality?
You mean the idea that lighter skin sometimes gets, like, preferential treatment?
Exactly. It's often subtle, but it's there. Look at the media advertising, TV shows. You often see lighter skin, more European-looking people featured more prominently.
Hmm. I could see how that would cause issues.
It does. It can affect how people see themselves, maybe even opportunities. And it leads to these important, sometimes difficult conversations about representation and whether that multicultural pride really includes everyone equally in practice. It's a challenge, frankly, that lots of diverse places face.
Okay, moving on from skin tone.
hmm
What about eye color? Is it mostly brown or is there variation there too?
Mostly brown or dark eyes, for
Wow.
sure. That's dominant. But thanks to that European input, you actually get a fair bit of variation.
Like how much?
Recent studies suggest maybe 12 to 15% of Costa Ricans have lighter eyes.
Yeah.
Hazel, green, even blue.
Wow, that's more than I would have guessed.
Yeah. It's more common, obviously, in families who trace back more directly to Spanish or maybe Italian or German immigrants.
So you could see it within the same family.
Oh, absolutely. Anecdotally, you hear stories or even see it in smaller towns, siblings, one with dark hair and eyes, the other with hazel eyes and lighter skin.
No.
That genetic lottery playing out, it surprises people sometimes.
And hair must be just as varied then. Texture, color.
Totally. Another clear sign of the mixed heritage. You've got the thick, straight, black hair common in indigenous and many mestizo people.
Right.
Then the huge range of textures from Afro-Costa Ricans, tightly curled, coiled, all sorts. Beautiful variety there.
Hmm.
And then from the European side, you get wavy textures, sometimes lighter browns, even some blondes, though less common overall.
And people use hairstyles to connect with that identity too.
Definitely. It can be a real statement. You see Afro-Costa Ricans embracing natural styles, braids as a point of pride, maybe some mestizo groups favoring straightened styles. It's not just fashion, it's often tied up in representation, cultural identity, feeling seen.
Okay, so beyond the colors and textures,
Yeah.
what about general build? Height, physique. Does that tell a story too?
It does, yeah. On average, Costa Ricans are pretty close to the Latin American norm, men around 5'7", women about 5'3". But again, the averages hide regional variation linked to ancestry.
So different groups might have different typical builds?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the Central Valley, the mestizo population tends towards medium height, average builds, but Afro-Costa Ricans, often drawing on West African ancestry, can frequently be taller, maybe more mesomorphic, naturally athletic builds.
Okay.
And then contrast that with some indigenous groups like the Brubri or Cabekar in the mountains. They tend to be a bit shorter, maybe stockier, which could even be an adaptation, to living in those rugged, forested environments for generations.
That makes sense. And things like better health over time, that affects height too, right?
Oh, for sure. Costa Rica's done pretty well in health. Life expectancy is high, around 80 years. That's amazing for the region.
Yeah.
And definitely better nutrition, better healthcare over the last few generations means younger Costa Ricans are generally taller than their grandparents were.
Yeah.
Environment matters too.
Right. And speaking of ancestry, we have to circle back to the indigenous legacy. It's a smaller percentage now, but still so important.
Absolutely vital. About 2.4% of the population, but their impact is huge, culturally and genetically. And they often have those very distinct features we talked about, the almond eyes, high cheekbones, that bronze skin tone, often more compact builds.
And their isolation helped preserve that.
To a large extent, yes, especially in places like the Talamanca region. That relative isolation helped maintain genetic traits distinct from the wider mestizo population. It's why their languages and cultures have also survived so strongly in places.
But that isolation can be a double-edged sword, right?
It really can. It helps preserve heritage, definitely. But it also often goes hand in hand with challenges like marginalization, less access to resources, limited political representation. It's a complex picture. Preserving identity while facing modern societal hurdles.
Okay, so we've got indigenous roots, Spanish mixing, African heritage, later immigrants, all creating this incredible variety. Which brings us to a core question. Is there even such a thing as a typical Tico look? Must be controversial.
Oh, it's very debatable, and you'll get strong opinions either way. Ask someone in the Central Valley, they might describe a typical look. You know, the tan skin, brown eyes, mestizo features, kind of the default image for some.
But not everyone agrees.
Not at all. Talk to people in Limon or in indigenous areas, and they'll likely push back hard. They'll say, no, WE are Ticos too. The Afro-Costa Rican family, the indigenous family, the family with German roots, they're all equally Costa Rican. It's a point of pride for many not to fit into one single box.
And the media, like tourism ads, probably lean towards that one specific look sometimes.
Often, yes. They tend to feature lighter-skinned individuals. And critics argue that this reinforces a stereotype. You know, it can kind of erase or minimize the visibility of Afro-Caribbean and indigenous Costa Ricans who are just as much a part of the nation's identity.
And people don't like being mistaken for other nationalities either.
No, that can be a point of frustration. Costa Ricans have a very strong sense of their own unique identity, distinct from their neighbors like Nicaragua or Colombia. So being misidentified can rub them the wrong way.
It helps to visualize it. Like, imagine just standing on a street corner in San Jose.
Exactly. Picture it. There's a woman, mestiza maybe, tan skin, straight dark hair, selling coffee from a stall.
Okay.
Then a taxi pulls up, Afro-Costa Rican driver, dark skin, curly hair, laughing with someone. Across the plaza, maybe you see a Bribri kid playing, those unmistakable almond eyes and high cheekbones. And walking past them, maybe a family that looks more European, lighter hair, maybe blue eyes.
Wow, all in one snapshot.
All right, there. Each face different, each background different, but all Costa Rican. That's the reality. That's the essence of it.
So, looking ahead, this mixing, this blending, is it just going to continue? What does the future look like?
Well, demographers definitely predict more blending. Intermarriage is common, and that historical trend isn't slowing down.
And new people are still arriving too.
Yep. New influences keep coming. Think about Nicaraguan immigrants. They're about 10% of the population now. That's a huge recent addition, bringing its own variations. Plus smaller groups from Colombia, the U.S., China. It's constantly evolving.
So the typical Costa Rican of the future might be even more mixed.
That's the projection. Scientists looking ahead, say to 2050, think the average person will likely reflect an even more complex blend. European, indigenous, Afro-Caribbean, maybe Nicaraguan, other bits, all mixed together in new ways.
Which must bring up feelings too. Excitement about blending versus maybe worry about losing distinct identities.
Exactly. That's the tension. Some worry, especially about preserving unique indigenous cultures and languages in the face of more mixing. Others see this constant blending as Costa Rica's superpower, its adaptability, its openness, that Pura Vida spirit, maybe?
A real dilemma. Unity versus preserving distinct threads.
It's a question many nations grapple with in our globalized world, isn't it? How to hold on to both.
So, summing it all up, the reason Costa Ricans look so different really boils down to centuries of mixture, a constant flow and blending of peoples.
That's the core of it. You've got the Spanish settlers mixing with resilient indigenous groups, the vital contributions of African descendants, especially from the Caribbean, plus later waves of global migrants. All these streams flowing together in this relatively small country.
It creates this incredible diversity.
Huge diversity, genetically, culturally.
So, the takeaway for everyone listening, next time you think Costa Rica, don't just picture one kind of person.
Right. Picture a crowd, all different shades, hair types, eye colors, tan, dark fair, curly hair, straight hair, brown eyes, blue eyes.
All Ticos.
All Ticos, all part of the same vibrant nation. It's really powerful proof, I think, that beauty and strength truly do lie in variety. Understanding that richness, well, it makes our view of the world better.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for walking us through that complex and fascinating story.
My pleasure. It's a great topic.
And thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the many faces of Costa Rica. We hope it gave you some new insights. Until next time, keep exploring.